first thing we try to emphasize to people is that we want to conduct safe, effective fires. And one of the things we tell people that they need to do is to come up with a burn plan. And so we have numerous workshops showing people how to do burn plans. We actually, Harry, myself, and 3 or 4 other people work for the Oklahoma Prescribed Burn Association, and we'll actually make burn plans for people, hoping that they will eventually learn how to do their own burn plan, or we'll look at a burn plan that someone else has come up with and basically critique it and tell them what's good about it, what's bad about it, or what the deficiencies are and stuff like that. So typically, I think Harry and myself both, you use this plan, don't this template. This second handout that I sent you is the burn plan form that we use, and it's on the Oklahoma Prescribed Burn Association website. So it's in a fillable PDF form, so you can actually just download the template off of that website and fill it in on your computer if you want to. But it addresses things such as fuel conditions, what the prescribed weather conditions are that are desirable for the burn, things of that nature, and talks about the types of equipment that you're going to need and things like that. And basically what this burn plan is a if you've been doing it a long time, you can do the burn plan. You can almost do the burn plan in your head. I mean, it's all there. But for a person that's just starting out doing prescribed burns, it takes them step by step and makes them think about particular things about, okay, what weather conditions do I want to burn in? How many people am I going to need to implement this burn in a safe manner? What are the fuel conditions like? What wind direction do I need? What wind speed do I need? What's the relative humidity levels that are acceptable? The range that I can burn in safely? Things of that nature. So it gets you to put that down on paper so you think about it. It also serves as a, if it ever were to come that you were perhaps to have something escape and your neighbor were to sue you for burning 50 acres of his pasture or something, if you went to court, you had this burn plan and that you had turned into the rural fire department. It would demonstrate that you had given proper forethought to conducting this prescribed burn, and that the escape, and if you burned under that prescription, then the escape was due to some unforeseen circumstance that happened that you had no control over. So it gives you a little bit of security from in terms of liability. So the burn plan is critical. So in terms of summer burning, what my experience has been with summer burning is that summer burns are typically less volatile than are dormant season burns, and a lot of people think just the opposite, that you're gonna set the world on fire. Well, if you're doing a summer burn or a growing season burn under prescription, so that's with wind speeds less than 15 or 17 miles an hour, and your relative humidities are 30% to 60% or something like that, typically you're not going to get into problems. If you have a summer burn in the middle of a drought, say, and you do it in the latter part of August, and all of your this year's vegetation is dead, okay, or dried up, well, you're essentially conducting a dormant season burn during what would be the growing season. Now, those kind of burns can get pretty volatile and they can be really hot. But typically when you're burning and you have this growing season's vegetation in a green vegetative state, you're burning last year's growth. Okay, so last year's dead fine fuel is the fuel that you're burning, and so it has to burn, ignite, drive out all of the moisture in that green vegetation before it actually ignites that green vegetation. So you can see this burn here that was conducted, what'd they say, 11 days ago, I think, something like that. So these growing season burns oftentimes will be pretty patchy, so it's not a dormant season burn. If they had burned this during the dormant season, it probably would have been, everything would have been scalded off black to the ground. Well, you can see there are patches here of things that didn't burn. Well, it looks like dead vegetation now because it's browned up. That was from the heat of the fire that browned up green vegetation. So it didn't burn up and it wasn't consumed during the fire, but it still top killed it. Okay, so so it takes a lot of energy to do all of that, and so those growing season burns are typically less volatile and a lot easier to control than is a dormant season burn under the same conditions. Oftentimes, depending on what we're doing, you can kind of stretch out those those parameters for burning. That we typically use 5 to 15 mile an hour winds for a dormant season fire. For prescription, 35 to 60% relative humidities. You can typically you can increase the wind speed a little bit for a growing season burn because it's less volatile, and oftentimes you can sit here and light the head fire and it still just creeps. I mean, you can walk along with it, whereas in dormant season you'd have to run to stay with it. If we can get lower relative humidities, we would burn under lower relative humidities. Sometimes we can't start a fire until it's noon because of the dew that's on the ground. So oftentimes humidity is a issue getting it low enough. Whereas in the dormant season, you're always fighting to, well, if it's predicting that the humidity is going to be 30%, you can almost count on it falling to 25 or 20% if you light a fire. So it's and then it gets kind of touchy. You start getting a lot of spot fires and things like that. Spot fires during the growing season, burn, they're typically something that you can walk over. You don't have to run over to and, oh my God, it's going to get away. You can probably walk over to it and stomp it out because it's not going to get away from you. Whereas in the growing season, if it were to do that, you'd have to hustle and be there Johnny on the spot and put it out.